I'm Jared Carpenter. This is More Than Blockchain. And today I have guests Aussie and Grant. They are back on. If you want to hear the episode that we did about a month ago, guys, where we just talked about overall looking at 2024 and investments, go check that out. I'll leave the link below. There we talked about crypto, real estate, and stocks. Today we were just going to talk about the crypto bull run. So last time I introduced Aussie first. This time I'm going to introduce Grant first. And I also want to say before I introduce Grant, last time Grant just made a guttural noise when we introduced him. So I'm interested to see what he does this time. And also, this is a monthly installment. I think we're going to start at once a month. And then maybe if things heat up, we'll go twice a month. And who knows, maybe this will just be our full-time jobs. So Grant, how are you doing?
I'm phenomenal with no guttural noises. I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Aussie, how's things?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right today. It's actually above zero today in good old cold Canada. So,
geesh, buddy, geesh. Well, when does it? Grant is trying. When does it? When is it seasonable? When is it nice for shorts and t-shirts?
Oh, late May, early June.
June 2nd, but only June 2nd.
That's it. June 2nd to July 1st, and that's it. That's the window. So look, I've got a list of things I want to run through, and without further ado, if you guys are ready, let's jump in. Once again, this is going to be a focus on the crypto bull market, and it should be said out loud, as every crypto YouTuber does, or person who's creating content on the internet. This is not financial advice. And if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, go ahead and check out the description. You can also watch this live because we're going to do some stuff where you're going to want to see what we're doing. So you're going to want to see the video. And the other thing is, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks. So once again, not financial advice. Let's dive right in. So what I wanted to start off by doing is kind of talking about, and we already did this kind of on the other episode, so I want to get a little bit away, but who we think are the winners. And so what I want you to do are to write down the 3 cryptocurrencies you would put in a portfolio. And you can only put, hypothetically, you can only put your money into these 3 cryptos, okay? These 3 cryptocurrencies. You can use any of them, Bitcoin down to whatever meme coin you want. And I'm going to give you each about 20 seconds. So you now have about 20 seconds. Pick 3 cryptocurrencies. We're going to show them, and then we're going to explain why we chose these ones, all right? So go ahead. And this is where, if I had really good post-production, we would add in some Jeopardy music. I'm interested to see if anyone has any memes. All right. Aussie, you look ready.
I'm ready.
Grant?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Aussie, why don't you go first?
You got to deal with my crazy handwriting, the fact that it's all backwards, but it's akash,
No. It looks good.
Solana and Matic.
Okay. Grant, why don't you go? And then, I've never heard. Aussie's talked about akash. I haven't. Bitcoin, ETH, Matic. Okay, cool. Grant and I. So, and this is mine. Hopefully you can see it.
Yep.
So Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol. Well, maybe we talk about the ones that we don't have in common. So Aussie, can you put up yours again? You have akash, Matic, and what?
Akash, Matic, and Sol. So it's just akash that I don't have with either one of you. Akash is, I think, a really interesting play. It's basically a GPU and compute renting service that's decentralized through the blockchain. They're up quite a bit already this bull run, but I think they've got massive room to play, especially with the AI stuff that's going on. You need a lot of GPU compute for AI, and so they've positioned themselves well. They also hold a lot of high-end kind of exclusive chips that a lot of people don't have access to. So it's pretty interesting. I think that they're well positioned. They've run quite a bit, but I think that they're still a tiny market cap for what they're doing. So I think that they're probably a very strong pick for the rest of this bull run.
That may be the only one, Aussie, that you called out, because Grant had what? Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Matic, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. I guess maybe we'll talk about Matic and Sol. I think Bitcoin and Ethereum are kind of understood, maybe, at least of like maybe why you would pick them, more of a conservative, honestly, among the crypto landscape. Grant, do you want to talk about why Polygon, why Matic? Some people are saying oh, it's not going to work, it's dead. I've heard that many times. And I think that a lot of people also just judge projects off price. And I think that that's not the way to do it at all.
Yeah,
And
I've
we're going to dive
been.
into NFTs later. And sorry, Ozzy, we're going to dive into NFTs later. And many people have been wrong over the last 6 months just because they've been looking at floor price. And it's like, that's not the strength of the community or the potential trajectory of where things are going. So Ozzy, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to add, like, there's so much going on behind the scenes at Matic right now that it's actually nuts that most people don't understand. I've listened to several really interesting interviews with the founder of Polygon in the last like 3 weeks, and nothing has been making me more bullish than that. And it's not because he's a hype man or anything.
Got you. Do you have anything that you want to share that's been going on behind the scenes?
Well, they've just released their ag layer, so they're right now they're both a layer 1 and a layer 2. They're moving fully into a layer 2 is their goal, and they are actually building it essentially kind of like Optimism, where chains build on top of them. But what they're aiming to do that's better than Optimism, is much faster aggregation time, so your funds actually finalize faster, and liquidity is unified across all of the sub chains that are connected to Polygon. So that is like massive for everybody.
Okay, that's a huge step up. And why would they be making that move? Is that because they potentially foresee a future where with Ethereum upgrades, they may no longer be able to carry as much water for Ethereum?
I don't know. I think part of it just has to do with the fact security is expensive. And so by using Ethereum security, but essentially having the unified liquidity system, which we need, having the ability for anyone essentially to build on their chains, something we need. And like, I think there's just, you're putting yourself in a position where you can access anything you need, and be part of that huge liquidity system. Being able to access ETH liquidity is massive. And so I think that is probably a key component, but not the only component of why they're doing it.
So it's interesting, Aussie. You talk about liquidity a lot, and it's just not something that I really think about. But you have a different vantage point into crypto than I think myself and Grant does. Just you've done trading bots, and you've done more trading potentially, and you're hyper sensitive to liquidity. So I have that written down, literally the word liquidity. So I'd like to get into that later. But what I want us to do now is to take these cryptocurrencies that we picked out, and I want us to write what we think their top is going to be at the end of the bull market, whatever that is. Okay. So I have Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. I'm going to go ahead and write next to them what I think their top is. And then we can go ahead and share what we think their tops are going to be, their top price. And then we'll get into actually the timing of that, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I need timing first. Like, over what time period?
Just this crypto bull market. Just this crypto bull market. I personally think the crypto bull market, also, this is based on historical stuff, and maybe we shouldn't base that, past events cannot forecast future events. But due to the halving happening in about 3.5 weeks, we count out 18 months from that. Early October is where we're probably going to see the all-time highs, at least for Bitcoin. Now, we could see all-time highs for altcoins or things after that if there's an alt season, a proper alt season, as people take Bitcoin profits and put it into other things to pump. But I'm basically saying this crypto bull market, and that can kind of be left ambiguous, meaning you guys can kind of let me know when you think there's going to be a blow off top. So it's basically just, what do you think is the max price for the coins you've chosen over the crypto bull market? And then Grant, you're totally right. Timing is a huge part of this. So then if you want to talk about why you chose your prices and where that timeline is that you think is going to happen, that is totally part of, what you're thinking. And to give some more context, my father reads the Blockworks newsletter every day. And the guy in the Blockworks newsletter was saying the bull market's already done, right? And he was saying this because historically, Bitcoin will hit all-time highs after the halving, and we'll have some kind of a meme coin season. But normally that doesn't happen until way after the halving. And we've already seen things start to grow, but obviously every cycle is different. We've never had this much institutional money being pumped in Monday through Friday. So it's just interesting to see how some people kind of take that. Obviously, I think that was a little hyperbolic because clearly the Bitcoin bull run, in my opinion, hasn't even begun. I mean, like to really ramp. So
yeah, we should touch on that later because I've got some like stats both from a trading perspective and from a liquidity perspective and positioning perspective that makes some interest. So I think that I'll hop in there on that stuff because I think that there's some interesting things happening in the space for sure.
Yeah, especially with that. So Grant, yeah, great question. I'm kind of leaving it ambiguous, just saying in this crypto bull run, but as we share our prices, definitely outline where you think that will happen more or less in the year and month. And if you're ready, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think in this bull run, Bitcoin will hit 112. I think in this bull run, Ethereum will hit 7,200. And I think in this bull run, Matic will hit 235. Now, Matic is the only one that I didn't place above its all-time high. I think the education required to value Matic from a retail perspective is too great. Aussie, you said Matic is focusing on being a layer 2, which is shocking me because everything I was reading on the rollover from the Polygon token to the Matic token,
or the Matic to the Paul.
Sorry. Yes, the Matic to the Paul. Whenever they switched, all the messaging around that at that time was, we're not sure if Ethereum has long-term commitment as an organization to really innovate and to grow. And so as a layer, I mean, we're calling it layer 1. It's technically a layer 0. It's its own blockchain. It's its own layer 0. And I was under the impression that they were shoring up their future as their own protocol. And I leave them in my stack for two main reasons. Number one, as a layer 2, they're making ETH better, and ETH needs to get freaking better. And I didn't know about the unified liquidity. I'd love to hear more about that. But that's why Matic has stayed in. However, I didn't put them above their last all-time high because I think there's such a headwind against their PR. I believe that they're doing better from a PR perspective than ETH is, but they're not as big. So those kind of sociological factors, those marketing factors to me dictated that. ETH 7,200. I know, its all-time high was 48, give or take. I don't think it'll double, but I think that it will increase simply because of its sheer size, and its use case is just immutable from that regard. But I think it's going to be more muted in this bull run than people realize because they have very weak leadership. The idea of decentralization is stupid when it comes to leadership. It feels like everyone is afraid to lead strongly because they might press against the leadership, the ethos of decentralization. So without leadership, at some point, it doesn't seem like they're rallying their PR engine and their marketing engine like they should. In fact, in a lot of ways, they are disappointing me in the way that Charles Hoskins has disappointed me, and that the tech speaks for itself, and it does not in any way. And then Bitcoin, 112,000. I'm literally taking a wild guess here. 90,000 seems too weak. The 150 plus thousand in this bull run seems too aggressive, mainly because inflows at this point have dropped by 80%. And so the institutional inflows drove this growth right up until like last week. And then the inflows from institutions hit a full stop like last week. And I don't know if they were just trying to experiment with market making on their own end, and they're trying to throttle it, pull the price back. I'm not really sure what it's intentional, whatever it is. And maybe any day next week or the next month.
To me, it's taxes. It's all about taxes. If you look
Interesting.
at anything, essentially inflows, the fact that inflows stopped this past week, that is exactly 7 days past the start of March. The start of March is the end of when you can write off taxes for the previous year through investments into either retirement accounts or IRAs or anything like that. And because the ETFs have 7 days to invest back into Bitcoin, to actually buy the Bitcoin that's related to the ETF, the fact that we're seeing that 7 day spike, that 7 day kind of cut off, and start to see the kind of slight outflows, slight just holding it just has to do with taxes. Everyone, I think March is going to be a terrible month because taxes, everyone's figuring out their taxes through March. And then in April, everyone's like, okay, I've got my budget. I've got everything kind of cleared and shored up. I can start doing stuff again. And March is always historically a terrible crypto month because of that.
Aussie, I think that that's really good insight, and I think that there are macro plays. And I will say that between the halving, where we normally see a 40% drop off of Bitcoin, and that's historically what's happened right after the halving, the 2 weeks to 2 months after, you see a big dip as miners go offline and hash drops, and then as soon as it goes down a little bit, people have their sell orders or their put in place. That on top of the fact it's right around tax season in the US, the tax season here is 415
in Canada.
This is gonna yeah, is it the same? So this is gonna happen in 419, 420. Those two things combined are going to create a little shock, and then it's going to be interesting to see how we pick up after that. Do you want to share your prices? And I saw you also wrote down some Bitcoin prices as well, Aussie.
Yeah, I wrote down, I since we had like 3 in common, and then you guys both had Bitcoin and ETH, I was just like, screw it, I'll do Bitcoin and ETH too. Let's see if this shows nicely. Okay, Bitcoin 257,600. Akash about $65, Sol $1,250, Matic $11, and ETH about 12,000.
So Aussie, if you could you also list out, because I think most people know where Solana is, most people know where ETH is and Bitcoin is right now if they're in the space, but could you list out where Akash is? Akash and people know where Matic is right now as well. Sorry.
Akash is sitting at $5.60 right now, which is a 1.3, just shy of a $1.3 billion market cap. So I'm forecasting a little bit more than a 10x on Akash. Just for everyone, for clarity's sake, Matic is currently sitting about $1.13. Solana has been on a run. It's sitting at $191, and ETH is sitting at $3,675, Bitcoin at 68K. I've got there's like some reasoning behind my numbers. Akash at over a 10x puts it, around a 13 to $15 billion market cap. I think it could go a lot higher, but it's already run quite a few percent up until now. And so that's a conservative number for me in terms of where it could go. Solana, $1,250. That puts it at matching ETH's market cap last bull market at the peak. I think it could run as high as 1,500, just money supply. If you think about money supply, there's more money in the market. If you look at dollar valuation, it could sit maybe as much as $100 billion above ETH's previous market cap. So between 1,250 and 1,500. Matic is, to me, at $11 to $13 by the end of this bull market. Puts it at a really solid footing, in my opinion. They are working on their messaging a lot in terms of what they want to be doing. And to put it easily, that puts them around 110 billion market cap, which would be right now, just slightly, it'd be matching Tether essentially right now. And it would be pretty close to BNB last bull cycle. So that to me feels pretty reasonable. 110 is exactly the peak on BNB last bull market, and ETH 12,000. Everyone's calling for 10, and so for me, I feel like 12 is that one's a little bit more of a guess. I hear 10 a lot, and I think that we might end up blowing that because, Grant, you say marketing's not there, but the ETFs are potentially approved in May. May 23rd is their Armageddon date, or their doomsday date. Although, to me, I think it takes a lawsuit again to pass it, so it's probably in the fall. But ETFs are right around the corner. And so that's super simple. And then for me, 20, I think the number that some people will think absolutely absurd, 257,600 on Bitcoin. That is, I drew fibs. I've been working like my trading mind. This is where things go. But
for everyone who doesn't know what Aussie just said, he drew Fibonacci lines on his TA, on his technical analysis. People may not get fibs. So
yeah. And so this also, those lines match. Essentially, if we look at Bitcoin's performance in the last three bull markets, they hit different lines each time, and it generally drops by one line each time when looking at previous cycles. Technically, it would be hitting a number closer to 134, 500 if we were to take the rule of basically diminishing returns. However, I'm looking at this cycle and looking at the supply shock that we're having because of institutions and the buying in those institutional funds, and I'm saying we might disregard diminishing returns this cycle, because up until this past week, institutions were buying up to 9 times the daily production of miners.
It was even more. Or maybe that's the average. Maybe that's the average 9.
Nine's
but
the
there were
average.
days where it was 15 or 16x of the daily production of Bitcoin.
Yeah, so I think 9 is the average. They're buying on average 9 times the amount of Bitcoin that miners were producing, and with the halving, that will continue. I think that it'll actually increase. You'll probably be talking an 18x, potentially an 18x. Although, even if buying were to slow down a little bit, I think that's probably healthy for the market right now. So those are my numbers.
So Aussie, I agree a lot with those numbers, and I guess I'll start with ETH. Grant, I think ETH is going to run. I think ETH is going to get the ETF, and it's going to have institutional interest. I don't know if that will be on the same level of Bitcoin. I think it goes back to your point, the idea that leadership can't be decentralized. The idea of leadership is literally a point of a spear, right? That's how like the C structure works in our hierarchy of building a business and how things work. You know, if we go into the woods, we're likely not going to make a decision democratically every 5 seconds. If you're the one that's been in the woods more, be like, all right, Grant, what are we doing? Follow along. You'll tell me what to do. And then, you know, I'll go set up the tent. Aussie's going to get water and you're going to go split firewood, but you're going to be the one telling us. So I completely agree with you. I think you can't decentralize leadership. And so that's like a pro and a con, depending on how you look at it for Ethereum. But my number for Ethereum, and here I'll share it here, is 17,000. And my number for Bitcoin is 225, and my number for Solana is 1.4 thousand. So some of these are more bullish, some of these are less bullish. My Bitcoin's less bullish than Aussie, but my Solana is more bullish than both of you. I just think Solana is this weird thing where it's about at its all-time high now. I think in market cap, no.
In market cap, it's approaching. In market cap,
yeah,
it's its all-time high.
Yeah, and it's gone from $8 to $180 in about 14 months.
It's almost 200. It's almost $200 right now. It's
almost $200 right now. I mean, it's incredible. And the thing about Solana that blows my mind is that the network falls and fails all the time. It would just be offline. And so you have this thing that's
its all-time high. Just an FYI, it's blown its all-time high in market cap. It's almost 10 billion over its market cap from last bull cycle.
Yeah, and it's one of these things, and Raoul Pal talks about it. He's like, look, if you look at the charts from 2017 and you match that to where Sol is now, they're almost, you wouldn't know the difference between the chart with a gun to your head. So that's where I get the 1.4. I'm just going to get really bullish on Solana. And then with Ethereum, I think its burning mechanism is crazy. The more you buy, basically the less there is, which I know is normally the case when you think about Bitcoin as well. But the way that they're burning, it's an anti-inflation thing, right? It's a deflationary asset. And the fact that you can stake and 20% of it is already in staking, I think that number will increase if institutions get into staking and they're like, wow, we don't want to trust bonds or any of the federal stuff anymore as far as like mechanisms we trust after what happened with, SVB and all that, where they just raised the rates and tanked 3 banks on a weekend. So we're going to go into this thing and we're going to try that out. And then I think the ETF, the institutional interest, I just think that's crazy. So those two, and I also think that, yeah, go ahead, Aussie.
Grayscale's already introduced a staking product. They like 2 weeks ago introduced a staking product that includes Cosmos, ETH, I think Sol, and a few others. I don't know the full list, but I know that ETH, Sol, and Cosmos are all in it. So institutional money for staking the doors have been opened now.
I'm glad that you added that, because I just think that there's like a couple things that you need, and then all of a sudden these things turn a corner and they kind of go quickly. And then my Bitcoin is 225, and that's just because if Bitcoin last time was 7, I think it's going to go around 3, so it's going to get to around 2100, and that's close enough to 225. I'm just going to say 225. That's the number I've also been saying on More Than Blockchain on the channel for about 6 or 7 months now. So I just kind of want to stick with it and then see how far off I am, or if I'm close at all. But Grant, I think your number was at 112 for Bitcoin. Is that right? Yeah.
Just double it, and he's right there with you, Jared.
Just double it, yeah. And so Grant, you had about 112. Also, you had what, 130?
No, 257. So 130 is my conservative. We're getting diminishing returns. 257 is what I think actually happens.
And so the thing about looking at Bitcoin is, if Bitcoin wants to play into the long-term narrative of, if you listen to Jeff Booth or Michael Saylor, they're like, this thing's going to suck up everything. It's just, it's the most perfect thing to put your money into, right? It's the best store value. So their belief is, you look at $930 trillion worth of value in the world, and then it just starts sucking up all of that, right? And the first thing it needs to get past is about 11 trillion or 10 trillion, because that's gold. And so I think in this bull run, and the Bitcoin right now sits around 1.4, 1.5 trillion. I think it gets to around 6 or 7 trillion. And that's how I kind of get to my number, more or less. And that would exceed my number. But, Kathy Wood, who looks at this stuff more than I do and is definitely way more intelligent than myself, she's calling for, pretty high Bitcoin. And for many of the institutional players, what they're seeing, even 225 could be conservative. So that's where it kind of gets crazy. But I think that there's a part of me that also thinks that if to get to 225 is insane, right? Even if to get to $5 to $6 trillion market cap for Bitcoin, you're talking about $5 to $10 billion maybe going to Bitcoin daily from retail and institution over the next 24 months. If I believe this is probably going to blow off top around the fall, October, November, December of 2025 has always been my time. That is the time where I'm preparing to, sell some of the stuff in my portfolio. Right. And so I actually wanted to ask you guys, so with that said, with Bitcoin maybe hitting, 5 or 6 trillion, my overall crypto market cap is somewhere between 10 to 12 trillion at the top. And to give you some perspective, and I've looked these numbers up, at the top in 2017, when I got in, it hit around 750 to 800 billion. Okay. And in the last run, I was just looking, and I don't know if I had it perfectly because I was trying to move the line there. It got somewhere around 2.9 to 3.2 to 3.1 trillion.
3.2 is
3.2 trillion.
Yeah, 3.2
is generally
trillion.
Accepted.
So yeah, that's the number we talk about.
So if you go from 8 billion to 3.2 trillion, that's a 4, right? And that's where I'm just going to go 4 again, because I think the interest is even coming in more. And I think it's become more legitimate, this entire space, vis-a-vis, I think, Bitcoin and the Bitcoin ETFs. But if you just go by 4, it's somewhere between 10 to 12 trillion. And if Bitcoin is going to take 50 to 60% of that, that's how I get to a 5 to 6 trillion market cap. And that's honestly how I think Bitcoin gets 225. And maybe it gets near 300. 300 Bitcoin would be crazy. But you almost have to get near a 300 Bitcoin this cycle if by 2029 in that bull run you get to the $1 million Bitcoin that Kathy Wood has kind of called out. So
that's why I like the 257, because I think that puts us a 4x from the previous all-time from the 1 million. And to me, in a diminishing returns ecosystem, considering inflating money supply, that we can hit the $1 million by 2029 essentially. That's the number to me. For it's, 250 is going to be 200, 100 obviously, 250 and 200 are probably going to be very big psychological numbers. And I think I literally went so specific because I think market makers love blowing you through that kind of, we're going to pass 250 and then everyone's like, oh, well, we're just going to go to 300. And then they're going to screw with everybody, is my opinion. Market cap wise, I think we're at least, in my mind, looking at 15 probably trillion in
15 trillion total crypto market cap.
Yeah, probably.
So, okay, let's live in that world. We get to 15 trillion though. And I don't think Bitcoin ever drops lower than 40%. Then even 257 is conservative.
I'm going to disagree with this because I think that what will likely happen to get us to the to that 15 or 16 trillion dollar market cap is Bitcoin hits 257,600, drops to 250 probably, or just below 250, and we're going to see everything else running. And so I don't think we'll be at that market cap for very long, but as we blow off top, that's where we get the 1560, where Bitcoin, I think, might drop a little bit below 40%. I think it could hit 30. And what I'm seeing is alts as a whole, as a market, are becoming the retail market. Bitcoin is almost no longer the retail market. It's almost institutional market at this point in terms of what happens. And so that's why we see memes. That's why we see, I mean, if you look right now, the number of cryptos that are within the top 100 that are over $1 billion market cap is nuts. We're almost matching, like total is almost matching 3.2. We're at 2.5 right now. And so
I think it's higher, Rossi. I think it's like 2.8, 2.9.
No, it's 2.5 right now. I'm looking at it. I've got TradingView open. It's
you're talking about the total market cap
of crypto right now, according to TradingView. It hit 2.7. It's down at 2.5 right now.
Okay, yeah, because I use Coin Market Cap and I'm seeing 2.6. But either way, I think this is the crazier thing, and I actually want to shift into some more shenanigans if you guys are open to that. Shenanigans being, who is going to be the BitBoy crypto of this run? Meaning the person who's going to be great for people to kind of get onboarded, for people to get some trust into. I watched a lot of BitBoy when he only had 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. And the guy was great. He had low production. He was raw. He was giving you his honest opinion. He was breaking down projects. It was really great content. 3.5 years later, the dude goes through a divorce. He's bringing guns to people's houses and he's being live streamed as he's being arrested. So do you have anyone that you think is going to be doing this now that you see in crypto? Grant, this is for you. And I'm not sure if we can even say this, but I'm interested who's going to have the BitBoy, which is the complete arc from hero to villain. Not even that he's a villain, but someone you go from trusting to being like, wow, that guy was, because I trusted BitBoy. I really thought his content was awesome when he had, like I said, 50 to maybe 120,000 subscribers. That's when I found him. And, lower production, way higher value in content. And then he kind of lost himself. So is there anyone that you would call out specifically that you're like, maybe could go on this type of an arc?
Like have a fallout other than Jay Shetty right now?
Jay Shetty, but is Jay Shetty in crypto?
No, he's not, but they're trying to cancel him right now.
For what? Do you want to speak on that? I mean, that's a little gossip.
I mean, just
guess.
very briefly, for those who don't know, Jay Shetty is a positive personal development relationship, not psychologist, but pop culture voice. He stewarded over some celebrity weddings and stuff like this. And, he's very popular. And his hero story is that he spent 3 years as a monk. And turns out he didn't. He was a Vedic monk. And then he wrote, most of his book came from other people's writings and ghost writings, and he's not reacting to it. And I don't think he's going to get canceled ultimately, but I just had that thought about that arc. I don't know. I think all of the voices are playing clean right now. BitBoy Crypto, the replacement to the group, they're playing very clean. And I think most people at this point are on their best behavior. Like, my brain wants to go to, like, I think Cardano's going to have its final fallout with Charles Hoskins. I don't know why I say that, other than he just seems to refuse to want to play Mr. PR. Though, honestly, of all of the founders, he's been the most consistent to do lives, to educate on his chain and whatnot. But, like, I think everyone's looking for him to fail. I don't think he will fail necessarily, but I think someone will find something and he'll just be like, I'm sick of this. I'm a Cardano billionaire. I don't need any of this other than development. And he's in it for the development. But I can't think of anyone else. Like, I'm sitting here thinking the first thing that came to mind was, the guys at Bankless. And I'm like, no, these guys are clean. I mean, they play so clean. So I can't imagine there's a real voice. Honestly, no, I don't want to say that in present company. Or, like, not present company, but live. I'll say it offline. But there's one voice that I think had a following and won't have a following soon, and will just kind of fall flat, but won't have a villain arc. So I don't know if we're going to have a villain arc in anybody, honestly. But I know that's the non-answer. But go ahead, Aussie.
I'm watching, like, Twitter. I don't know if it'll necessarily be YouTube. There's a few people that I'm watching that could have villain arcs on YouTube, on Twitter. But I'm not going to name names because I just don't think, like, right now they're keeping their nose clean. And so I'm not seeing anything that says for sure, but just their vibe gives me that idea. And then looking at YouTube, I think Alex Becker is going to get another villain, people portraying him as a villain arc. So I don't say it's a BitBoy arc, because really he didn't go burn down in flames. People hated him, but in reality he did nothing wrong. Like, nothing that he did or said was wrong. And so, in my opinion, Alex Becker is probably going to feel the same fate that he felt last time, but maybe a little bit more heat than he did last time.
Can you guys, and I really respect you guys not wanting to call people out, and that's probably honestly the best thing we should do here, right? But I want to pass the mic back to Grant. Grant, could you go ahead and maybe describe what said person is doing that is going to allow them to fall flat, or what they're not doing that's going to allow them to fall flat, if that makes sense? Like, what are the things that they're doing? Because I'm just really interested. We all create content on the internet talking about crypto, talking about, Grant, you're focused in coaching and personal development. That's probably your mainstream. And then obviously crypto always plays into your freedom thesis, right? You're looking for financial freedom and looking for more personal freedoms. And therefore crypto is an interesting thing because it is decentralized and it is a permissionless network. And you're a child of the internet. You like the fact that the native, protocol network that started the internet, there weren't these big companies, right? There weren't Facebooks where you could get deplatformed and all this stuff. So if you could talk a little bit about the things that this person's doing that maybe is going to allow them to be flat, that would be great. And then Aussie, pick up on what he's saying and just talk about this too, because I do think that there are going to be certain things this time around, and then maybe I can bookend that. If you try to do the plays from last time, you're going to get in trouble this time. But anyway, Grant.
So the main thing is this: in the last bull market for crypto, it's technically the third, what I would call the third wave of the technology, but it was publicly really only the second wave of the technology. And in the third wave, institutions come in, and we saw this with the invention of the internet. In first and second wave, you feel like you're the underground. and it's you against the world. And this is why we were in Wonderland, and this is why we took major risks with high APY protocols. And it just was like, it was a gambling casino, and we wanted that. And personalities, Danielle Sestigala, these personalities were big, and that was a feature, not a bug. The person I'm talking about wasn't in crypto. They were a YouTuber and still are. And they had a good shtick, and they had a lot of personality, and they're putting on a lot of good content. So many, crypto now has been critiqued because, where did all the voices go? And now all the memes about now that the bull run is back, the voices are back, and, zombie Twitter accounts are coming back online, and people are like, I've been here. And, and I feel that. The truth is in third wave of any tech, it's boring AF. These shows, like we really have, like if you notice shows like not more than blockchain necessarily, but talking head shows about crypto in general, you start to get into the weeds and the nuance. Why? Because the people that stuck around are now true lifers, and they're into the nuance, and it is boring AF. And that money is made in boring, right? Like that's a good feature. It means the market's stabilizing. And yes, we're going to see like a shit coin season, and it's going to be a meme coin, and we're going to make fun of people. But the personalities are flattening. So the person I'm talking about has a big personality. They felt like they had a lot to say. And then the market tanked, and they realized they were surviving on charisma and hype. And they had nothing to say, and they went largely quiet. And now their following is not nearly as engaged. They're not nearly as strong. And I would say I found this too. We had our own Discord for State of Spark. I had my own Patreon on this. And I have a lot to say about crypto. I've been in crypto longer than anyone I know. Like, I don't know anyone who's been as long as I have. And I am admitting it's boring, and we shouldn't be talking about it. There's nothing more to talk about other than we're making up theses now. And now we're like hypothesizing about the future, and what's our technical analysis, and does the Fibonacci sequence, and what about the RSI indicator? And like, we're just fucking speculating. And well, no, we could go back and show trends. And it's like, yeah, you could show a trend for any stock on this shit. And so now we're just talking head, now we're just like, and that makes, and again, for people that are deep in it, that is fun. It's just like us watching, fantasy sports. And I can't stand fantasy sports either, because it's like, we're literally just, it's like there's a company and its stock, and that's based on a decent valuation. And then there's like derivatives, and then there's like futures. And now you're getting these like 3 and 4 layers of make believe. And I have zero patience for that. And that's a flaw in me, not a flaw in it. People seem to love that, but I think it's boring as shit. So my voice is kind of quieted because I feel like I don't have much substantial to say other than dollar cost average, buy the blue chips and go. Like, I can't say that in another show. So this personality I'm talking about, I don't think he has the strength of character to stay quiet. So he's going to start now making shit up based on his kind of A-type temperament. And he's going to be making shit up, and he's going to get caught. And then he's going to bring this A-type leadership to his group, and he's going to piss everybody off. And it won't be a BitBoy crypto villain arc. It's going to be an internal angsty arc, because he's just trying to get clicks. And I think we're going to see the people that get burnt, and the personalities that are going to get burnt in this cycle are the personalities that actually, A, don't have anything to actually say. B, they're just engagement farming. C, they're not savvy enough to do that skillfully, so they're going to blow up their audience and their internal team. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Go ahead, Aussie.
So actually, wait, Aussie, if I could, I want to ask Grant one thing. So yeah, Grant, I hear you 100%. I hear you that for you, it's boring. And I love the tie to sports and fantasy sports. For example, in America, in the United States of America, there are many of my friends in groups of fantasy NFL. I could literally care less. I think it's boring that they get into, which receiver is going to have the most yards, which quarterback is going to throw the most yards. But the reason why I think that's boring is because I don't really care for the NFL, and I don't really care for that sport. So then why would I care about the synthetic? And I think, so the question I ask myself is, what does the NFL have to do to spice it up and make it interesting for me? And I never come to that answer. So I'm going to ask you something that I can't come up with my own analogy here, right? But what would crypto need to do to get you to come back beyond price? Because for me, crypto and Bitcoin is now beyond price. I think it's absolutely fascinating day in, day out. I am in the weeds and I love it. And there's conversations that are happening around Bitcoin, especially, and just around Ethereum, other things that are way beyond price, way beyond, is this going to help me meet my financial goals? So for you, is there something that would be beyond price or outside of that that would interest you and spike interest and maybe bring you back more into crypto? Because the reason why I know you, and maybe the reason why Aussie knows you, is because you were making a lot of crypto content on your YouTube, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
You have a great MetaMask video. You have a great Wonderland video. That is the video I saw. So what would Bitcoin or crypto or NFTs, we haven't even gotten into NFTs, what would that need to do to get you dancing again? You know, you're on the side of the wall, the DJ's playing crypto, and you're like, oh, I hate this song. What music do you need to hear? What are the things?
A world-changing mission and vision. I am not disenchanted enough with crypto to know that that's not what's happening. It is. This is now disruptive, but we've shifted from a cultural zeitgeist to disruption, meaning we've gone from the hearts and minds to now Silicon Valley and Wall Street, and that is what is now boring. And I mean, now it sounds like TradFi. Everything people talk about, so it's boring. That does not mean it's bad.
I think you're listening to the wrong crowds, though. That's the thing.
No, like I've dipped in and out of all the niche groups, and this is what I mean. It's not boring to those who are staying in deep, staying in nuance, talking about hash rates, you guys just spent the last 20 minutes talking about market fucking cap. And that's cool for those who it's cool for. But that's like us talking about who's in the last bracket at the NFL. And it's like, it's not fun for me.
When did you lose your love for crypto? You guys had a bad breakup.
No.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
It sounds like you had a bad breakup with crypto, you know?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't that. It's the vision of, like what Jarrett, the reason we're still good buddies on this topic is your heart for how crypto can help the average Colombian get financial identity, the cause, the mission. This is why I still have a place of affection for Cardano and Stellar in my heart, because it's like, okay, we're on the streets in Africa. This is why I prefer reading stories about them reverting from crypto now back to cell phone minutes as currencies, because I love the innovation at that level. And so for me to pull me back, I want to hear people not talk about necessarily. It's relevant to talk about the market cap. It's relevant to talk about price and all that shit. But okay, we're just in the money chase now. Okay, that's cool. For me, go ahead, Aussie.
I'm gonna hop in here because I hear what you're saying and I understand what you're saying. I think that there is a lot of things that we're talking about that, like right now, like we're talking price. We were making predictions. We like that is like everyone's favorite thing right now. We're in that stage of the bull market. But I also think that there are a lot of things that are going on right now that are trying to solve real world problems. There are like the level of tech and the level of mission driven things that are happening on the lower levels. If you are not listening to the big voices, is all there. You've just got to be listening to the right voices, because if you're listening, and this is interesting and kind of plays onto your first wave, second wave, third wave. If you are listening to the people that this is their second wave or their third wave, like maybe they were here in 2017, they blew up in 2021, and they're still here talking in 2025, like 2024, they're boring. They will be boring to new people. They will not be the people that new people listen to, because they've blown the bits out of mission, values, and everything. And they are, I guess, somewhat like you. They don't have the time to go look at the things that are small, new, maybe risque, maybe a bit different and off the map. And so you are going to get the boring conversations there. You are going, you are essentially listening to the political analysts on CNN or something that aren't that don't get the prime slots. They're the ones that are talking about the real meat. If you want the risque, if you want to hear about the mission, the value, and everything, you are looking at people that are this is their second wave. You need to be listening to those people because those are the people that are in the really either mission driven stuff, the value driven stuff, the very specific tech stuff. Like, how can we use crypto to fund charities, sustainably fund charities over time? How can we use crypto to move better trace goods so that we can ensure that we're getting a healthy food supply? How can I make sure that the banana that I just bought from the grocery store was produced by a local Colombian or Peruvian or Panamanian, I don't know, South American? They were paid a fair wage, and now it wasn't sprayed with anything, and I've now got a fair value for it. I'm paying them a fair value for it. So I think that there are that stuff out there, those mission driven stuff there. It's just, you got to be listening to the right voices, because the voices that have been here for 2 cycles are the voices that are in the boring now, or because they found their niche. They're either talking about the tech, they're interviewing founders and talking about the tech that's worth $1 billion, or they're talking about trading because they found their niche in trading, because there are tons of traders out there, and people love trading. It's just it plays on the gambling aspect of people's kind of nervous system and their adrenaline system, and so there are tons of people that are into that, and so people are playing into those niches, and so you've got to just go back and find the voices in the niche that you enjoy.
Yeah, I echo that whole. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I cut you off, Aussie. I echo that wholeheartedly. It's like the same people that tell me hip hop is dead, and that's just because they turn on the radio station in their local town and listen to the hip hop channel. If you do that, you will think hip hop is dead, because that's going to give you only a certain level of what's happening. But the people that are actually moving hip hop forward are amazing. And you can find them on YouTube, and you can find them on Spotify, and they're doing crazy things, and they may not be on CNN. And I think it's the same thing with crypto. Alex Gladstein is writing unbelievable articles about Bitcoin energy and its ability to bring energy to places that didn't have energy before, from a humanitarian standpoint. So I think that this is why I wanted to talk about this particular narratives, though, because I don't just want to talk about price. I wanted to talk about other things in the crypto bull run, beyond just price predictions. Price predictions at the end of the day is exactly what Grant said. It's speculation. That is all it is. We are literally just throwing darts at a map and being like, oh, that's what we think is going to happen because of the ETFs and all that. Who knows? Literally, who knows? It could be more, it could be less. It could be spot on to what you said. We just don't know. One of the things I wanted to hit on last maybe is narratives. Aussie has a video, which I will link below, which talks about the narratives that we're going to have in this upcoming bull run, from DeepIn to AI to cloud services like Akash, it sounds like, for compute. What are the narratives that you would be looking out for, Grant, or a narrative that maybe will interest you? And maybe it sounds like, because we spoke actually off mic about service. Will there be a narrative around, maybe this is why Stellar is really interesting to you, because Stellar, most of their stuff is 95,000% focused on how do we use this blockchain to support people around the world to move money easier globally. And so what's a narrative that would be interesting to you, or one that you're looking out for as an indicator of this is a great product, this is going to be something that you want to learn more about maybe?
Well, I mean, to clarify, the ones that I'm hoping for versus the ones I'm expecting, right?
Okay.
I'm hoping for more developed and developing nations to actually, like Bukele, say, we're making the switch. Like, we're switching from a currency to stabilize. And I hope to hear more of that, even at a grassroots level. Like, I don't know if you saw in Haiti, the president, I think, simply resigned because the mafia or the Monchet or the mob leader is the de facto leader of Haiti now. And this has gone on off and on for decades. Just with my humanitarian work, you see this now and again. But he just stepped, like the president, just like, I'm stepping to the side. Why? I'm not even ruling. I'm not even helping. So I'm out. And it's just like, I hope to see this with some of the failing currencies around the world, where they just go, listen, we're just going to dump this. Everyone, come in and turn in your fiat, and we'll give you an amount plus a premium of 10% or 15% in Bitcoin or something like that. And we'll do some sort of exchange or Stellar or whatever, probably not Stellar, but like in Bitcoin or something like it. I want to see those narratives, or I want to hear more NGOs do exactly what you have done historically, and that is onboard the unbanked and the unfinanced in a more aggressive way. I want to hear headlines on Fox and Friends and MSNBC of, a Southeast Asian country today just onboarded 250,000 people with new wallets, and they didn't need papers, and only 10% of them had birth certificates, and yay, they have financial identity. I want to hear that. I know that the tech conversation is there, and that like especially around IDs, like ZK proof IDs and stuff, that stuff is very interesting to me and very hopeful to me. But we all have to admit, now the conversation is in a boring stage, because we're in the dev stage. Like, we're in the deep dev stage of distributing these technologies. So I think I would want to hear some of those narratives. The narratives I fear that I will hear are the block wars, the wars over inscriptions and data and blocks, and the price of Bitcoin. And we see Bitcoin retrace. It goes from 72,000 to 68,000, and the headline is Bitcoin dump 7%, and you're like, what? Like, what? And to me, that's inevitable, because that's the media cycle. And you're right, Aussie. Maybe I just need to re-plug into these deeper groups doing deeper work. But maybe my interests are not in the tech, but the sociology of the tech and the humanitarianism of the tech. And I want to be more in those circles. If we were at Consensus and I could go to a conversation or go to a talk, and that talk was storytelling, that talk was examples, as opposed to, this is our new white paper on this protocol. And it's like, okay, like,
there were at Permissionless, there were talks about that stuff. I tried to get you to go to them, and you and your ADD brain were everywhere.
I was networking.
Those.
You're right. I was talking to people. You're right.
Yeah. I remember there was a whole stage dedicated to that stuff. And I think I didn't go to ETH Denver. I heard that there was some of that stuff too. Although ETH Denver, I do find tends to be a bit more on the tech side. It was really big this year. So like, there are those talks there. That is stuff that is going on, and it's just, you've got to plug in. I think Consensus, there will be those type of conversations as well. And I know Permissionless 4, I'm sure we're going to have conversations about that again, because I think that's still super important. And just to touch on your banking the unbankless, I'm seeing more and more stuff building to have the infrastructure to start to handle, to really create that decentralized financial system, from credit to like microloans to anything and everything related to decentralized finance. I think the major thing, and the thing that a lot of people are trying to solve, but no one I've seen has really solved it in a strong way, is basically digital identity. Like, there's a lot of talk about it. I've seen a lot of different people trying to address it, but that's the one space that I feel probably is lacking. But it's confusing. Like, it is a confusing spot to be in, because I think there are risks to, at least right now, I don't like how anyone's implementing it or how we're approaching it. And so I think that to me is challenging. And so when we talk about values and culture and everything, because there is an anonymous nature to people in crypto. People do appreciate anonymity and privacy. There is a piece to that. And right now, there, with how we're approaching digital identity, we're taking away any ability for that to happen, at least in implementation. And so we need to be looking at ways where you can implement digital identity, but it doesn't necessarily forego the ability to have privacy and the ability to have multiple wallets, and not necessarily have all of those wallets be digitally proved to be yours, like to be linked to your digital identity. Because I think that there's power in that. And right now, I think there's also risk in that, in terms of digital identity being tied to a wallet address, because there are still vulnerabilities out there in that tech. And so, without diving too deep into it, I think there's massive risks in how we're implementing it right now.
WorldCoin.
I hate WorldCoin, like, from my bones. So
yeah, if you want to check out an old episode we did about this, I'll try to link that below. We did a WorldCoin episode where I was not hot on it. I don't think Aussie was, and Grant was like, bathe me in it. We're a little bit over time, but the one thing I wanted to share was I agree with Grant. I think the adoption of blockchain, first and foremost, as a technology on a sovereign level for like nations, is going to be huge. Whether that's we're going to implement this to track our agriculture, or we're going to implement this in our voting system, or we're going to implement this from our currency level because we want to have a more stable currency. We don't want to be relying on the Federal Reserve. And we know the Federal Reserve is going to continue to print money, and we're a country in Central or South America, and we're done dealing with that. We're done dealing with that. So I think the narrative is going to be big countries, and it's going to be interesting to see how that happens, because a lot of people think the game theory of, Saifedean talks about this. He's like, well, it was just like gunpowder. You know, if my country developed gunpowder and adopted it and started to use it, and we were potentially in warring, closeness, well, you either adopted it or I took you over. And if that's the way Bitcoin plays out from a economic standpoint and a kind of a economic security standpoint, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, because one of the things that happened in 21 and 22 was everyone said Bukele's the worst, right? Look, he's down 60% on his Bitcoin. How could he do that? How could he take his tax money and do that? That's so, it's so irresponsible. Well, now he's up hundreds of millions of dollars, and you will not hear it on CNN or Fox Business or any of it, because it's not something that people want to talk about. It's just not something that people want to talk about. So the narrative for me is nations adopting blockchain first and foremost, and then seeing how they can use that decentralized technology, in theory decentralized, I'm going to use that in air quotes, to bolster their country, to support their citizens, and to make life better for their citizenry, whatever that looks like. I think it will take on many different ways.
And I mean, we're seeing that. I'm going to hop in. We're seeing that. Qatar is looking to start mining. They're putting 250 million, at least, if not more, into mining Bitcoin with their sovereign fund off the oil fields. They're using off-gassing from the oil fields in Qatar to mine Bitcoin. And I think it was Guatemala. I can't remember which country implemented the use of blockchain to verify their election results. So
it was Guatemala.
To double count.
It was Guatemala.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to touch upon that, that's where like the technology only goes so far, because they have so much corruption. It didn't matter. Even if there was a school election, for example, at our high school, and we use blockchain, and, Grant wins 80-20, but the 20 is all like the popular kids, basically, or the people that have the power. That's kind of what happened in Guatemala. And there was still issues after that. But yes, Guatemala did use blockchain. If I'm not wrong, even somehow used Bitcoin, I think, to ensure a more fair election because of the corruption that is rampant. So you're totally right, Aussie. Aussie, do you have any other examples of countries that are mining? Because like most people don't know, but Bhutan is mining, and they have like, I don't know, less than a million citizens. So Bhutan per capita, if Bitcoin does what people think Bitcoin's going to do, they could have one of the wealthiest places per capita on the planet per citizen, and they may rival Monaco, right? In the next 10 years, which is insane. And this is a country most people
Yeah.
don't even know exists, right? But they've been using a lot of their hydroelectric power, and they've been mining Bitcoin for years. So their overall, DCA number or cost is very, very low. And so,
outside of that, Paraguay is setting themselves up for it. They're mainly through deals with like private facilities setting up there to use the hydropower and taking it. But there's, from what I've seen and heard, there's like some kind of like Bitcoin tax that might be kind of essentially they're skimming a little bit of Bitcoin off the top to essentially help fund Paraguay, a Paraguayan fund of Bitcoin. It's what I've heard. There's no official announcements on it. It's kind of in circles that I've been hearing this. I mean, we're seeing Bukele, their volcano bonds are finally, and their volcano miners are getting ready to be online within the next 3 to 6 months, is what I'm hearing. And then I've been seeing talks in 2 countries in Africa, and I'm blanking on which ones they are, but there are a couple. It's not Nigeria. I know a lot of people will say, oh, it's probably Nigeria. I know it's not Nigeria. It's a couple of smaller ones that have been looking at using it, especially actually related to power. So they looking at, oh, we'll do a big infrastructure project here, but we don't have the tax dollars to pay for it. We'll mine Bitcoin. We'll set up a Bitcoin facility and mine Bitcoin to help pay for it. At least that's what I've seen. I can't name the countries right now. That's blanking on my brain at the moment.
Yeah, Nigeria has never been really accepting of Bitcoin or crypto as a state. They're not really into that. But hey, guys, we were way over, and I'm not even sure if the streaming worked because apparently I'm a noob. So thank you guys for hopping on once again. If you've been listening to this, go ahead, subscribe to More Than Blockchain, whether it's on YouTube or on a podcast. Share this with somebody if it is at all interesting, if they're into crypto or they're not into crypto, or they want to hear some people talk about crypto, because some of the nomenclature we use is good for newbies to hear, to kind of understand where we are, even things like fibs. No matter where you are watching us, go ahead and follow us on social media at More Than Blockchain. And Aussie and Grant, thank you for hopping on once again. And hopefully we'll hop back on in April. Maybe we do a halving episode. I don't know.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah,
I like the sound of that.
Of the halving episode. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks, boys.
Boom. Thank you.
Thank you.